Okay. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And, you know, first things first, how are things going to at your end, like in motor racing? How's everything going?
Hi, everything is great. Thank you so much for having me here. So this year I participated in the girls category at national level, and I was leading the championship. But unfortunately, I had a crash in the last race, and I moved up to second place in the overall championship. So it's been good. It's been a lot of learning this year, so it's been nice.
Oh, okay. So that's good. Of course, it's in India, it's a stigma, most girls are not appreciated or, pushed towards the sports side. So what inspired you to go in motor racing, towards the sport of motor racing? How were you inspired?
Okay. So my dad used to be a racer, and growing up, my twin brother was always into bikes. And when we were 8, he started riding bikes. Like my dad taught him, and
Oh,
looking at him, I wanted to try it as well.
okay.
And once I tried it, I loved it as well. So I continued it. But yes, there was a stigma because there weren't many women in the sport,
Oh,
but that wasn't a disadvantage to me. It has never been as a disadvantage. It has always been equal, but there is not much scope for women in motorsports, so
oh.
that's a bit of disadvantage. But
Correct.
nothing as
Oh, okay. So, like as you mentioned, it's a bit of a disadvantage for women in motorcycle. I mean, it in most of the sports except cricket and football, it's the same thing if we look at it in India. So, if you think, do you think there would be a scope for someone to go ahead in motorcycling? Like, example of yourself, you have been in nationals, you have participated in the national championship. So if do you think that you yourself have a scope as a girl to go ahead in motor racing?
motorsports as such is a very hard sport for for you to go international. It's very
Correct.
difficult, and especially in India, there are not many sponsors. And it's not motorsport is not a very famous sport, so not many people know about it. So there are
Correct.
not many sponsors. It's mostly us spending out of our own pockets, which becomes extremely expensive. But if you perform to the greatest extremes, then there are people who look out, and there are selections that you can go participate in. I have not participated in any of the selections. I am sticking to nationals because of my boards next year and everything. But
Correct.
yes, my twin brother did go on to the selections, and he's going international right now.
Oh, that's great to hear. So, my second question is a bit similar. The next question is a bit similar to the first one. So, being a girl, did you see or face any discrimination against you in motor racing? And if yes, how did that affect you mentally?
Okay, touch wood, I did not face any discrimination. As I went into motorsports as a child, so everyone saw
Oh,
me as a kid, and it wasn't really like I was a girl, and I wasn't really, separated. It was more if people were open to help me out, and when I was very young and I started racing, I didn't know much,
oh.
and touch wood, people were more welcoming, and they like helped me learn the basics and everything. So touch wood, I did not face any discrimination.
Oh, that's good. So, because a lot of people in India, they face discrimination and a lot of that. A few of my friends have also, experienced the same. So that's why. At participating at a national level, it's, of course, a bit difficult for you to adjust yourself before all of the pressure and everything. So how do you prepare yourself mentally before any race, be it nationals or any local race?
Um, well, as I was growing up, I think I was a little stronger on the mental side. So I haven't really struggled with self-confidence or anything. I mean, there was a phase where I did, which I took the help of a mental coach who helped me get through that phase.
Oh,
But before a race, it's most of meditation that helps a
correct.
lot. We do something called virtual lab where we close our eyes and we visualize the track and visualize the race. That
Okay.
helps us prepare ourselves mentally right before the race, and it also calms us down, so it's a great thing to do before a race.
All right. So, as you mentioned that you hired a mental coach who, who helped you calm down. So, do you think that if you hadn't hired the coach, you would have been able to go through that part yourself alone, or was it necessary?
Right. So there are coaches whom you can hire for your mental coach. I was supposed to join in one, but fortunately, I had another coach who, helped. The thing with me is before like any kind of race or anything, I like need like assurance and like I need the words, like I need reassurance that I'm good enough and like I can do it. So there was a coach who was kind enough to help me through it, so I didn't join a mental coach as such. But again, yes, my twin brother did join a course where they teach you how to calm yourself down mentally right before a race, and all the warm up and the everything that you should read and do right before a race, and which it does help a lot. So,
Of course. So as you mentioned, this year you had a crash during your national championships. So, of course, it takes a mental toll on you. So, how do you gather yourself after a tough race or a crash? On this aspect, focusing on a crash.
right. So the one disadvantage with me is on the downside is that I break down immediately if anything goes wrong. But yes, I have learned from my mistakes. The first thing I do is that I calm myself down and tell myself it's okay, and I gather my thoughts back, and I try to pinpoint where I went wrong and what made me do that, and make sure I don't repeat that again. But unfortunately, this time it was a crash because of a fellow rider who hit me. So at that point of time, I wasn't able to think anything. It was just like me immediately breaking down. But I did gather my thoughts later and try to see where I went wrong and how I could improve. So.
Correct. So, of course, that's great. Keeping yourself mentally strong, it of course helps during the tough times. So how do you yourself as a racer, motor racer, balance your physical and mental training during your practices and routine? So, and also which one would you prefer more? Like, what is more important according to you, the physical training part or the mental training part?
Right. So with school and everything, it did become a bit stressful at a point where I wasn't able to focus on everything. But I think both are equally as important. Without physical fitness, you would not be able to ride, and without mental fitness, you wouldn't be able to ride as well, even if you have physical fitness. Both are equally important. Yes, but you should focus on both, but I think mental role plays the most major part, because even if you do have the correct physique, if you don't have the mental place, then you would not be doing well. But same thing, if you have the good mental and if you don't have the physique, you wouldn't be doing well. So both are equally important, and you have to focus on both at the same time.
Correct, understood. So, as you mentioned, you have been balancing both school and racing together. So, growing up, there must have been a point where, you must have decided if you want to go ahead in MotoGP or, continue with studies. So, how did you make that decision and what was your viewpoint on that?
Okay, so I had to make this decision last year. It was a very tough decision because I loved racing, but
Of course.
I did have to understand that I did not have scope, and it wasn't that easy. So I did understand that need to have my studies no matter what. So it was a very tough decision for me to make, but I did end up, limiting myself to nationals until I finished my studying. because if I'm having to go international right now, I will be having to, switch to another board or switch schools, which would affect my studying. So I
Correct.
had to make a very tough decision. So I'm sticking with the national level the next 2 years, and after I finish 12th next year, I would be going international.
Oh, all right. So that's great. Of course, progressing as you go. So, as you told that you would be continuing with studying for these 2 years. So, do you think that as you go ahead, these years would make an impact on your future career in motor racing, or it's okay, like it'll go with the flow?
I think that's one advantage for women in motorsports. You don't have a particular age. You can, even if you're like 20 or 40, you can still be racing in the same category. That's the biggest advantage you have with women in motorsports. So no
Correct.
matter when I go for racing, I will still be able to participate in that race. But if you see, if like men in motorsports, you'll have a particular age limit for each category,
Correct.
so you wouldn't be able to participate in every category. But for women, it's not like that. So as long as, I keep in touch with the bike and, have my practice sessions regularly and work on my fitness and mental fitness, it wouldn't be a problem, hopefully.
So that's good to hear about. So, as you currently have your national championship going on, and you have been racing for a long time, I wanted to know, does the starting grid bring a shift in your mentality? So, like, for example, if you start ahead or in the middle order, so how does that bring a shift in your mentality?
I think I'm the most calmest at the grid than before the race. But yes, it does make a difference depending on the rider who's ahead of me, depending on the competitor who's ahead of me. If it's a stronger competitor ahead of me, then I would get a little worked up. But when I'm having the confidence of, getting ahead of them, then it wouldn't make much of a difference to me. At places like these, visualizing myself, making the moves and overtaking them helps a lot right before the race.
Correct. So, as you mentioned about the visual lab which you do before the race, so understood. And for example, if you start towards the end of the grid, I don't know how many racers are there in the national championship, but towards the end, like the last two or three racers, then how would you prepare yourself mentally for going throughout the race?
Yes, there have been many times where I started at the last of the grid,
Correct.
especially when I rode with the boys in the boys category last year. I started at the 23rd, which was the last grid. It was a bit of a pushback because I didn't expect myself to be there. I made a mistake which pushed me back. So it was a tough one to overcome, but again, visual labs helped me and I kept myself calm, and I knew I had the speed and the pace to get ahead, so that helped me, stay calm and make the right move.
Oh, all right. So that's great. Another question, as you mentioned, you used to race with the boys. So how do you think that developed you mentally? Because it's often heard about that boys tend to be much more aggressive during sports and against women in front of women. So how did that help you develop mentally while when you entered racing with other girls? Or
Yes. So last year I rode with the boys, and this was the year I rode with the girls. And after riding with the boys, it gave me like much more confidence because, as you said, they were pretty aggressive, and making moves helped me learn a lot while riding with them, which was much easier. I mean, with riding with the girls was like as tough, but I had much more confidence because I had already seen it, I had already experienced it,
correct,
which helped it easier to implement it over here.
understood. All right, so that's good to hear about. Uh, my next question would be, compared with car racing such as Formula One or NASCAR, they usually have team radios through which they can communicate about any updates or pit stops they want to go through. Whereas MotoGP or motor racing doesn't have the same bike racing. So if you want to give your team any updates about yourself, your bike, so that isn't possible. So how do you like keep in mind that I need to do something which helps me go ahead.
Right. So as you said, we will not be able to communicate with our teams, and even if it has anything to do with the technical issue or anything, it has to wait until after the session. But in the aspect of knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, I so we usually take down notes. We have a notebook separately for racing, and we make notes of what I'm supposed to be focusing on and what I should be working on for the next session. We have agendas, and based on that, I read it right before going in. I visualize myself doing that, and then I hit the track, which makes it easier for me to focus on what I'm doing.
Oh, understood, understood. And for example, while racing, so just wanted to know a bit of information for myself. So when you are racing and if there's not less fuel, but if there's a damage in the engine, but you think that your bike can keep on going on, but you need to inform your team. So is there any possible way which through which you can do the same, or you need to wait till the race finishes?
Yes. So if it's that bad of a problem, the team would come to will get to know about it. But we have like the pit walls in the main straight where when we're
Correct.
passing, the team would be able to see us. So when it happened to me once, usually I lifted my hand up where I let them know that I had a technical issue. So
Correct.
which I indicated to them, and they knew about it. But yes, you would have to wait until the session ends or until the race ends. And if it happens in between a race, you would have to retire from the race. There's nothing you would be able to do about it.
Oh, so that's a bit sad to hear about. But so, are there any major difficulties which you have faced through your MotoGP motor racing career? Like any major difficulties, and how have you overcome them?
I think it's in 2022. I was riding with the boys, and I had a contact and then a crash, and the bike behind me ran over my leg, which caused
Oh,
a fracture. So I had to sit out for the whole of 2022. I wasn't able to ride. I wasn't able to walk or do any sort of activities, which that was a pushback. And when I came back to practice, I went back to the basics. I wasn't able to, get back to my original speed and my pace. So that
correct.
was the biggest pushback. It took months of training, mental training, and practice to get back to what I was. And from there, I had to improve. But yes, keeping my mental fitness strong at these times helped a lot.
Understood. So that's really sad to hear what you have gone through. But of course, it's racing. People experience. Yeah. So my second last question to you would be, what kind of advice would you give to kids who want to make a future in racing, and especially girls?
I think just start. You just have to start, and when you enjoy doing something, it doesn't become much of a burden to you. You just keep
Correct.
doing it again and again. But yes, motorsports is a very expensive sport, and you do need your parents' support. And until you're extremely good, it's very hard to get sponsors. But there will be a day where you'll get there. So you just got to start right now. So that's it.
Thank you for spreading the word about that. I'm sure it'll help, young kids get motivated for the same, to make a career if they were like in racing. So my last question to you would be, what dream do you have which you want to accomplish in motor racing? So you must have set a goal like to win a particular race or a particular championship. So what is your main goal in motor race?
Okay, so I haven't really thought about this, but my main goal is probably the Women's World Championship, which I did have a chance to participate, but you'd have to be above 18 to participate in
Oh,
that. So my plan is to wait for 2 more years and train and prepare myself accordingly so that I go do well in that race.
oh, all right, so all the best for that. And thank you so much for joining me, and all the best for your future endeavors in motor racing, and all the best for your studies as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Mm.